Good morning, everybody.
Howdy, and welcome back. Vinny Vincent, as the title suggests, this is for you, my friend.
Yes, and thank you so much, everybody, for sending us information. I mean, even first thing this morning when I got up, Watchtower History had sent me the link to the pirate article I was looking for.
You guys are great.
Yes, best viewers ever. Thank you, everybody.
And I think before we get into the whole 666 thing, didn't you want to relate a telephone call that you got?
Yes, this was very interesting. Thank you, Dave. We have a friend back in Virginia.
In fact, this particular friend is the one that made the very, very large coffin lid out of cork board that we put all of those pins in there to show congregations being done away with and kingdom halls being sold. And that was the beginning of at least Kim and I trying to get all of us ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and current Jehovah's Witnesses recognizing that Watchtower is going out of business.
And that was the start of our tracking the property.
Yes.
So, and because so many were saying that we were crazy and didn't believe us, that's why I started getting the actual property listings and keeping track of it. And so, thank you guys.
So this is the Dave that Kim is talking about regarding the phone call she received yesterday.
The reason I keep looking up is there is one of those wolf spiders up there that is getting dangerously close to above our heads.
Quick, let me get my gun and I'll shoot it. I'll shoot it. Yeah.
So anyway, I want to thank Dave for calling me, and I was taking notes, so hopefully I can relate all of this correctly. I don't know what the heck is going on in Virginia, but he said that they have been working on a kingdom hall down south for about 3 months now, remodeling it, cleaning it up, and yes, they just found out it's going up for sale. But there's three Jehovah's Witnesses in his wife's congregation. Now, Dave was never a Jehovah's Witness. He's an ex-military man, but he's married to a JW. And so when he found our videos, you know, we've been friends ever since, because he didn't quite know how to handle, you know, his wife's religion. So we've been trying to help him, you know, and it's like, yeah, it's not you, they're crazy. But anyway, he was very happy to tell me that 3 JWs in his wife's congregation just in the past couple of weeks have woken up and have left. Now, one called his wife night before last, all upset, and I don't blame her one bit, because it's a black sister, and she told an elder that she could no longer afford the $200 a month donation that she had been giving. Now get this. This elder was so upset and angry that he called her the N-word. Oh my God.
Well,
I think these elders are losing it.
Like I've said before about this group of Jehovah's Witnesses, that anger, that hate is just below the surface.
Yeah. And Dave, you know, a lot in the congregation know him, not only because his wife is a JW, but because he is such a nice person that he goes and he helps all these elderly JWs. You know, like he's telling me about going and fixing one of the brother's lawnmower. Well, other JWs would go and fix his lawnmower and charge him like $170. And the man, you know, the JW says, "How much do I owe you?" And Dave's like, "Nothing." And he couldn't believe it. And he says, "You're not a JW, are you?" And he's like, "No, I'm not. Never have been." And he told him what religion he was. And he says, "Well, I'm not supposed to even be talking to you." And Dave is like, "Well, you know, whatever," type deal. But see, that's the attitude they have. And it's really sad. It's really sad. Because what kind of witness does this give to this unbelieving mate of this JW? You know, when he sees and hears all this, what do you think he thinks about Jehovah's Witnesses? Do you think he's ever going to become one? No.
No.
No. Exactly. Another one who had been working and slaving in the RBC/LDC for the past 10 years is very upset about the Kingdom Hall going up for sale that he has been working on and slaving on. Now, there was another one that told his JW wife, 80 years old, and I believe she's the one that is moving away completely out of the state and moving to an area that her county that she's moving to doesn't even have a Kingdom Hall. She wants nothing to do with them. This is what this JW 80-year-old told his wife when she called her. Get the hell out of Satan's organization. So Dave's wife at this point is shocked and upset and shaken up, because here's 3 JWs that she knows that are telling her, get out of this organization, leave. You know, don't have anything to do with it.
See, the thing is this does tie in with the topic, the theme of the 666 Mark of the Wild Beast. Because when you've been a Jehovah's Witness for as long as Kim and I have, and many of these XJWs that have a long history with Watchtower that are now doing YouTube videos will understand what we're talking about. And as Kim alluded to in a previous video, everybody has a mark according to Watchtower's theology. And I'm going to let Kim deal with that because she's researched most of that, whereas I have a different direction that I want to take this, and it does pertain to the Bible.
Yeah. Now, before I get into this, I just wanted to mention, you know, because we were talking about that poor black sister that was called the N-word by an elder. Oh yeah, these are loving shepherds. But I just wanted to mention, just out of curiosity, I went to jw.org and I put in the search the N-word. Yes, I actually forced myself to spell that word out because I think it's one of the most deplorable words ever, you know, and very demeaning. And you would think that if this was Jehovah's clean organization that had no racism, no segregation, you think they would not even have that word on their website? Oh yeah. When I did the search, 6 items came up.
Now, granted, Watchtower is taking the liberty of re-quoting someone else saying that word. But I gotta ask, why? Couldn't you find something better to say? Couldn't you framed this article, these articles, any better than what you did?
Or
Watchtower?
edit it, redact it. You know, just put the N and then maybe like an asterisk. And just say,
we all know,
you know, a racial slur. I mean, that would have been the PC thing to do. That would have been the politically correct thing to do. Just put the N with an asterisk and a footnote. You know, you cherry pick and edit things all the time, so this is nothing for you. But to have that word on your website makes me almost as angry as the May broadcasts did with the segregation. Because this tells me that segregation and racism is still very much alive.
That's right.
In this organization. And the fact that the elder told that sister, called that sister that word, just because she couldn't donate anymore as much as she has been, yeah, it's very much alive.
Well, there again, wolves in sheep's clothing and Mark of the Wild Beast.
Yeah. So along those lines, Vinny, we hope this helps. You know, there's so much to cover that, you know, we couldn't possibly do it all, so we're only going to touch on just a few things. Now, in your video, you mentioned that you had never heard a talk about the Mark of the Wild Beast. Well, since we're old and remember all of this stuff, they usually did it together with the writer's inkhorn talk.
Right.
Because they believe those are both the same. And so we've got a few things here, you know, that cover it. So first, I've got the Insight in the scriptures here, volume 1. I think my thumb was there, I almost lost my place. Now on page 848, they have forehead. Now the first subheading underneath that is mark in the forehead. And I'm just going to read this first paragraph. Bearing a mark in the forehead is similarly used in a figurative way in the Bible to signify that one is a slave to the true God or to another. You notice they have to qualify it with true God because there's so many others. You know, Satan is even called the god of the system. Okay, going on. At Revelation 7, 2 through 4, reference is made to angelic sealing of 144,000 persons in their foreheads, which is the mark on the forehead. The Catholics do the same thing on Ash Wednesday. They will actually put a cross right here on your forehead of ashes. So it goes along with the same thing of the mark, and you know, many religions, not just Watchtower, but a lot of religions believe you either have the mark of God on your forehead or the mark of the beast.
666.
One or the other. You have to have a mark, no matter what.
Right.
If you're alive on this planet, you have a mark. Who you belong to, that mark depends on you.
And depending on what religious group, how they view this theology, this mysticism, they all have a different take on it.
Yeah. So going on, it says see seal, because seal, S-E-A-L, you know, it's the same thing. They're sealed with this mark. In another part of the vision of Revelation, the 144,000 are represented as having the name of the Lamb, Jesus Christ, and the name of his Father written on their foreheads. So, you know, this is just a kind of setting the foundation of this mark. Now, I also have a bond volume here. This is the 2004 Watchtower, so it isn't that old. And this is the April 1st, 2004. Why is it always the April 1st?
Why?
April Fool's?
April's fool! If you're gonna believe this stuff, you're a fool! That's what Watchtower's saying.
Yeah. Now, this is a really good article on page 4. Like I said, April 1st, 2004, page 4. Identifying the mark of the wild beast. Now, I remember this article because of this picture, 666. So you can see it all goes together. 666 with the mark of the beast, mark of the forehead, the writer's inkhorn,
exactly.
all of it. And so the name of this article is Identifying the Wild Beast and Its Mark. Now, not that I believe Watchtower BS, but you know, this is just to show how Jehovah's Witnesses view this, how they believe this. And if you ask Jehovah's Witness to explain all of this, they usually cannot.
They can't do it.
Yeah.
You know, that's about like the overlapping generation theology now, because, you know, the generation of 1914 is dead and gone. So now they have to, like, you know, repattern what that whole meaning of Jesus was in Matthew 24.
Yeah. So the first subheading on page 4 is Bible names, more than just labels. And Bible names often have special significance, particularly when given by God. For example, because Abram would become the father of nations, God changed the patriarch's name to Abraham, meaning father of a multitude. God told Joseph and Mary to call Mary's future child Jesus, which means Jehovah is salvation. Yeah. So the next paragraph under that, accordingly, the God-given number named 666 must symbolize what God sees as defining attributes of the beast. Naturally, to understand those traits, we need to identify the beast itself and learn about its activities. Now, Mike is going to cover, you know, the actual letters or the numbers 666 when he starts doing his stuff. So the next subheading is the beast exposed. The Bible book of Daniel sheds much light on the meaning of symbolic beasts, and they go through all of these terrible beasts. And it's interesting because we have the Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible set. And Watchtower, why they would quote from them, since there's a lot of stuff that disagrees with their beliefs in that set of encyclopedias, is beyond me. But I noticed they cherry pick with a lot of dots.
Of course they do.
Yeah. The Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible points out that it combines in itself the joint characteristics of the four beasts of Daniel's vision. Accordingly, the first beast of Revelation represents the combined forces of all political rule opposed to God in the world. And they go on to naming this. Well, there's a box over on page 5, clues to the meaning of 666. And there's 4 attributes here and clues. I'm just going to read number 3. The beast having a man's number or a human number indicates that it is a human entity, not a demon. Hence, it reflects human failings resulting from sin and imperfection. Confusion. Number 4. In God's eyes, the number 6, being short of the biblically complete or perfect 7, points to imperfection. The mark 666 emphasizes that deficiency by repeating the number 3 times. Now we know when you start studying ancient, like Sumerian and Babylon and all of those, Persia, a lot of the old religions and stuff, 7 is, the number. So it isn't that it's God's number, because even the cults from ancient times and the moon worshippers and the sun worshippers and the serpent cult, all of those had something to do with the number 7.
Yeah. And just go ahead and keep this out here, sweetie, because some of the things that I was going to mention later, you just now covered. And I didn't realize you were going to cover that, so...
Well, it's interesting because we were just watching a show last night about ancient civilizations, and it was talking about the number 7. Why is it that cultures all over the world that had no connection with one another in ancient times, and Graham Hancock brings this out quite a bit in his books and lectures.
Yeah, Fingerprints of the Gods.
Yeah. So why is the number 7 so significant to all these ancient cultures? In India, you've got the 7 gods. Egypt, you've got 7. The 7 sages. There's 7 in so many of these ancient cultures. So it wasn't just, Jehovah and the ancient Israelites.
Right.
This number 7 was everywhere. And even the ancient Sumerian tablet, it shows 7 reptilian-looking Anunnaki, all standing in a row. So, it's interesting, how 7 is so prolific throughout the ancient history. Now, we all are familiar with the Revelation book here. Page 196 is talking about the mark of the wild beast. And they have the quote from Revelation 13, 16 through 18. I'm just going to read it from here. And it puts under compulsion all persons, the small and the great, and the rich and the poor, and the free and the slaves, that they should give these a mark in their right hand or upon their forehead, and that nobody might be able to buy or sell except a person having the mark, the name of the wild beast, or the number of its name. Here's where wisdom comes in. Let the one that has intelligence calculate the number of the wild beast, for it is a man's number, and its number is 666. Now, Mike and I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and we see so many of these videos, and they change every year. Because years ago, Obama's name, President Obama, his name, went out to the 666. They do this numerology. And, some have done, Trump, is 666. He's the Antichrist. And, this person is the Antichrist. And, the Pope is the Antichrist. Well, it's interesting because Russell, in his studies in the Scriptures, actually calls the Pope the Antichrist.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this has been going on for millenniums.
Yes. I mean, even when Rome was expanding after the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE, people were looking at some of those Roman emperors and attaching the 666 to this Roman emperor and all of this stuff. And what's really happened is that this theology has been taken out of its historical context, and everybody's trying to make it apply today. And it's not going to happen. We all know, oh, we can't take that little microchip in the wrist because that's the mark of the beast. That's, you know, the 666. I mean, everybody is driving themselves insane trying to find this magical number of 666.
And like I tell everybody, that, we come into this type of discussion. I said, look at your smartphone. It's got that chip in there that can even track where you are. Your debit cards, your credit cards, they all have that little chip. How is that not a mark of the wild beast? And you carry it with you everywhere gladly. And you can't buy or sell without that. So, is that part of it?
Well, let me just take it a little step further. If you have like a $5 bill, $10 bill, $50 bill, $100 bill, take that money and look at through that money with the sun. You're going to see a magnetic strip. It's a mark of the beast right there. I mean, we can look at this any way you want.
Well, everybody has their own take on this. So, we're not here to try to tell you what to believe, because what we're saying is everybody has a different interpretation. So whatever you want to believe is fine. But we're just presenting this information of how some may look at this. He's getting closer. Dude, you stay away from me. But this also goes along with Watchtower's belief with the writer's inkhorn. And before Mike gets into his stuff, I happen to have a talk from Franz, the president of the Watchtower at one point. Now, we all know Freddie was a little cuckoo, and he's the one that did, the pre-1975 scare, and he even did the talk. I'll put the link down below to that talk, and I will probably put this talk up also, because he did it in 1967, and it's called The Writer's Inkhorn. And I would like to play a little clip.
In fact, all of you have been born into a most dangerous period. You've all been born into an age where there is danger of your brains being bashed in. And I mean it. Now how? Well, there's one thing that is going to save you from having your skull crushed. I heard that. And that is this work that has to be reported upon shortly. Now, this is not a one-man's job. We used to think it was a one-man's job. We thought it was a work that had been performed by Pastor Russell. And the prophecy of the Bible would seem to indicate it was a one-man's job. In the typical fulfillment of this prophecy, if it was a one-man's job, it would have been a big job for him. Say that one man was Jeremiah back in the year 612 before our common era. And he was responsible for the salvation of all those who survived the destruction of Jerusalem. Well, that was about 6 years before Jerusalem was destroyed in 607. And in order to work for the salvation of all those, it would require a period of years on his time, on his part. But when we come down here to the archetypical fulfillment of the matter, we see that it is a bigger job than Pastor Russell could ever have accomplished for himself, even taking into consideration all of Christendom. And he's been off the job now since 1916. And when we take into account that this work is performed by the remaining members of the spiritual body of Jesus Christ, we see it has grown at least to be a work that is too large for their numbers. When we remember that the remnant today amount to less than 11,000 surviving till now. And they're all growing old and not able to accomplish as much personally, physically, as they used to do. And the work still goes on.
Okay, now I know this is an old recording and it's kind of hard to understand, but he says that they used to believe that Pastor Russell was the man with the writer's inkhorn, and
Right.
he was the one that was given this job of putting the mark on everybody's forehead, those that were going to be saved. Freddie Franz, in his cuckoo brain, is talking about these 6 men who were following this man with the writer's inkhorn around, and anybody who didn't have that mark was going to have their skulls crushed in. And if you notice, he says, basically, if you're not a Jehovah's Witness, you're going to have your brains crushed in.
Right.
So, this is really disturbing, and I think this is probably why they had to quit doing these type of talks, Vinny, because as you heard, it was just too disturbing for a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Well, imagine what a young child sitting in that
Yeah.
audience would now comprehend. Mommy and Daddy, I gotta get baptized so my head don't get crushed in.
Yeah, so you can see how even back then, how extremist
Extreme.
they were. And like Mike mentioned in the video yesterday we did, nothing has changed.
That's right. Nothing's changed.
Nothing has changed. It's all lying just below the surface, just like the racism and the anger. It's all right there still. Now, I wanted to go back to this article here in the 2004 Watchtower, April 1st. I'm going to go to page 6, the mark identified. Of course, well, you knew Jehovah's Witnesses would know everything there was to know about this.
They got the answer.
They have the
See,
answer for everything.
the mark identified. They have the answer, friends.
Yeah. Immediately after disclosing the number 666, Revelation mentions 144,000 followers of the Lamb Jesus Christ who have his name and the name of his Father Jehovah written on their foreheads. Well, you knew it had to apply to them.
You mean the name Jehovah? It's just widely used and it's popular. We don't know what God's name really is. We just went with what's widely used and popular. Yeah, no, I got it. That name is right here.
Well, it's the Tetragrammaton.
Fool.
Well, they say it's the name Jehovah. No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Because earlier they said it was the Tetragrammaton. So, confusionist. These names identify the bearers as belonging to Jehovah and to his Son, about whom they proudly bear witness. Likewise, those having the mark of the beast proclaim their servitude to the beast.
Right there, I've got to ask the billion-dollar question. If you are hiding child abuse, who are you really giving servitude to, Watchtower?
If you're members, NGO members of the United Nations, aren't you part of this wild beast?
So you carry that number 666. We've already identified it. It's plain to see because this was written in 2004. 16 years later, thanks to the internet and YouTube, we can now put you we can now put that number 666 in your forehead because you are serving the devil, the wild beast, by hiding the child abuse policy, by shunning and separating families and lives. That would be what a wild beast does.
Going on. Thus the mark, whether on the right hand or on the forehead, figuratively speaking, is a symbol that identifies its bearer as one who gives worshipful support to the beast-like political systems of the world. Ask Paul Gillies. What does he do at these NGO meetings, these OSCE meetings? Because he's usually there as a representative of the European Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. So whose mark does he have on his forehead?
That's right. And who put that there? Aunt Mo? Mr. Rubberface himself? Which one of the governing body members put that mark on the forehead of Gillies that makes him bow down to this beast, the United Nations?
Their lawyer Brumley went and gave a speech at one of these meetings. So isn't that mixing in with the beast? Does he have the mark on his forehead now? You know, whining and crying to the UN for their religious freedom.
That's right.
Well, why do you think all these countries are calling you extremists? It's because of the large activist army who are getting them this information of what you are saying behind their backs.
Hey, that's a good anachronism. LAA, Large Activist Army.
Back to the article. Those having the mark give to Caesar that which rightly belongs to God. How? By giving worshipful honor to the political state, its symbols, and its military might, to which they look for hope and salvation. Any worship that they render the true God is merely lip service. I couldn't have said it better myself. You know, we just did a video here a couple of weeks ago, you know, exposing the Jehovah's Witnesses in Australia for their support of the war effort.
That's right.
So, you know, if you haven't seen that yet, go back and watch that because it was right from their own literature, the yearbook and their Watchtower at that time. Rutherford knew about it and he was okay with that. He even, you know, congratulated the branch overseer in Australia for his initiative in getting jobs for all of these Jehovah's Witnesses. So how is that not mixing with the military and this beast? Just saying.
Okay. You ready?
For what?
For what I'm about to do.
I know what you're about to do.
Yes. Okay. To start off, I want to relate what I had tried to explain earlier in a previous video about looking for a specific video regarding an item regarding 666. Now, what I watched, it was entitled Bart Ehrman versus this person. And I forget the name. As I mentioned in a previous video, I spent a half a morning looking for it and I could not find it. I found another video instead that will validate what I'm saying. And at what point we're going to show that, I don't know, because I've got some things I want to cover, and when it's appropriate, I will show you this other person validating what I watched. Now, when I clicked on this video, Bart Ehrman versus somebody, I thought it was going to be a, you know, one-on-one debate between Bart Ehrman and this Christian scholar, this Orthodox or this conservative Bible scholar. So when I click on it, what I see is this conservative scholar giving a lecture in a university. And one of the first things that he mentioned is that Bart Ehrman is correct. There are textual problems with the Synoptic Gospels. There are problems with it. And I found it amazing that this conservative Christian validated what Bart Ehrman was saying, but then he goes on to say, but it's really no reason for us to lose our faith. That could be true. That could be true. And when I had heard this, I paused and I says, but this is not a complete sentence. This does not paint the full picture. Because if you come from a cult, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, this Bible, every word in this Bible has meaning. It has substance. It doesn't contradict itself. Is the Bible man's word or God's word? Is the Bible full of inerrancies? Does it We've passed out thousands of Watchtower magazines, Awake magazines, validating the inerrancy of God's word. So when I heard that, I said, that's a bunch of crap. Because depending on who you are and what culture you come from with a Christian background, it means a lot to some certain people, whether you maintain your Christian faith or not. So as he goes on in this lecture, he begins to talk about himself visiting a museum. And I believe it was the British Museum, if I remember correctly. So he goes into this museum, and he's looking at a credit card size shape of manuscript. And he's reading, and it comes from the book of Revelation. So as he's reading the words on this credit card size piece of manuscript, there's a light shining from the backside up through the manuscript. And as he's reading it, he's noticing that there's writing on the backside of this manuscript. So he asks the curator if he could take it out, flip it over, and read what's on the back side. Now, before I get into any of that, I want to read this. Because as Jehovah's Witnesses, this is what we have been indoctrinated with. Okay? Point 4 from that same article that Kim was referring to in identifying the mark. Identifying the wild beast and its mark. Point number 4.
In that
right
box.
Here, in that box. It says, in God's eyes, the number 6 being short of the biblically complete or perfect 7 points to imperfection. The mark 666 emphasizes that deficiency by repeating the number 3 times.
So the Bible has 66 books, like you keep saying, so that's only twice.
Well, that's what I keep saying.
Double the emphasis of being incomplete.
While everybody is going around looking for the mark of the wild beast, whether it's in your forehead or whether it's in your right hand, there's 66 canonized books. That's 2/3 of that incomplete number. That's 2/3 of the 666. Now let that sink in.
Well, it means that it's incomplete. And we know, because how many Bible books have been edited out by that Nicene Council and Constantine, that whole group. Who gave them the right? And many will say, but God and the Holy Spirit gave them the authority to do that. Well, then why did they fight and argue over a lot of the doctrines and a lot of the books? I know I digress. But that picture that I had in our video yesterday from that old 1611 King James, when you look at the title page of the contents, guess what? A lot of the Apocryphas are in that book.
Yeah. So when the book of Revelation says that the mark of the beast, it's a human number, 666, and you got 2/3 of that number in your hand, it's a human book. Process it. Process it. Now, going on. This conservative Bible scholar, as he's reading the back side of this credit card size manuscript, what does he read? He reads the verses in Revelation talking about 666. Well, guess what, friends? that number was not 666. That number was 616. I come unglued completely because I said, oh my God, all these Orthodox Christians for centuries have been looking for 666, and they're trying to apply 666 to everything they possibly can. Donald Trump, Obama, the Pope,
the Third Temple and the Orthodox Jews.
And even some Christians have, looked at, Solomon's given 666 talents of gold. Oh, Solomon's the mark of the wild beast. Solomon's was the... Look at all that time wasted. Look at all of that nonsense all these people were looking for in the number 666. And this conservative Christian has the gall to tell his audience, well, I was reading the credit card size manuscript, and it says 616.
But Mikey, most of the manuscripts say 666. It only may be one or two that say 616.
Then who made the choice? Who made the choice for you that it's 666? Did you make that choice? Did you read that piece of manuscript? But this is where I found what I was looking for watching another video on 666, and look at what this person does.
The history of interpretation concerning the correlation of a person with the number 666 has only resulted in endless speculations. One of the most prominent candidates has been the 1st century Roman Emperor, Nero. A rare rendering of his name into Neron Caesar, which is transliterated like this into Hebrew, renders the number 666. This rare form of Nero's name was actually found in an Aramaic document from Qumran. It is also noteworthy that a variant reading in the Greek New Testament manuscripts exists that cites the number as 616 rather than 666. The transliteration of the normal Nero Caesar into Hebrew renders the number 616. There was also a belief in a revived Nero as the Antichrist from the 1st century, to the time of Augustine, who cites the idea in the City of God. Whether Nero was or was not a type of the Antichrist is unclear, as there are some similarities. We mention Nero because many are familiar with that theory and the supposed connection to 666. Most believe there is still a final Antichrist to come, and this is what John had in mind. It is also doubtful that the usage of gematria is what is intended to unlock the meaning of 666. If you recall, John stated that we would require wisdom to solve the mystery of the name of the beast and its number of 666. Wisdom is not only knowledge, but the experience and discernment needed to apply such knowledge. When John said we needed wisdom, one might be wise to consider that John was referencing the ability to properly apply and discern the knowledge of the Scriptures. Biblically speaking, true wisdom comes from knowing and correctly applying the Word of God. How does knowing Scripture relate to the number 666? The only other instance in which 666 appears in the Scriptures is related to Solomon, 2 Chronicles 9:13. Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold. Some might arrive to the conclusion that this mention of 666 is simply a coincidence. On the surface, it does not appear to offer much insight, nor does it seem to connect to Revelation. Perhaps it is just a coincidence and means nothing. However, for those who doubt coincidences in the Bible, consider the following. In the law of God, the Torah, Deuteronomy 17 lays out an interesting command specific to kings of Israel. It prohibits the king from multiplying horses and chariots, wives, and wealth. This is exactly what Solomon is doing in 1 Kings chapters 10 through 11. Chapter 10 begins by commending his great wisdom, but then, step by step, we see a gradual decline. That is, he begins violating the rules for kings by multiplying gold. He begins multiplying horses and chariots, and finally multiplying wives. If that was not bad enough, these numerous wives turn his heart away from following Yahweh. He sets up centers of false worship for all the foreign gods of his wives. So, using the Bible to interpret the Bible, it could be reasonably deduced that the number 666 is associated with Solomon and his fall his abuse of power, and his turning away from the true worship of Yahweh.
It speaks for itself. Now we're going to put a link down below to this entire video because, in my opinion, it was very well thought out, and it was bringing in a lot of different things, like the point about Solomon and his 66 talents of gold, where he makes, well, there are people out there that think there are no coincidences. There are no coincidences, because when you've done the research that I've done, I very plainly see this book is a man's book. That's all it is. And I'm going to read something from the defined King James Version to point that out, to show you how destructive this book is, that bears 2/3 of that evil number.
Well, I don't know about evil, but it's a man's imperfection number.
Well, but all Christians are looking at it from the perspective of an evil number.
Yeah, and it's interesting, you know, when you start studying this. I've even heard Jehovah's Witnesses say this, and many Christians will say this. A lot of the videos we watch, they say, now when you go to the original manuscript, and we're like, wait, no. Like I said, even Jehovah's Witnesses believe this. There is no original manuscripts that anyone has ever found. Never. Yeah, we have the stone tablets from ancient Sumeria that have a lot of, you know, this history and part of Genesis and the Epic of Gilgamesh. That's carved in stone. But as far as these Bible books, there is no original manuscripts, and a lot of people forget about that.
That's right. So they'll put that in their little speech, making you think, well, now let's go and examine the original Hebrew. No, the Hebrew language is not even original. It filters down from a language before the Hebrews. Go and do your research. It's all right there.
Well, all those Semitic languages, you know, are very similar, and it's interesting because even Watchtower says, oh, well, Hebrew was the original language Adam and Eve spoke. No. The ancient Sumerian is even older, and we wouldn't have even been able to translate those tablets if it hadn't been for a tribe of people back then who were very similar to the Semitic languages that translated those tablets into languages that the scholars could understand.
Right. Okay, now I want to show everybody the importance of manuscripts. That there was a lot of manuscripts floating around at that time that were contradicting one another. If you just take the time to listen to what people like Bart Ehrman are saying, to what there's another really good channel out there, Myth Vision, and Dr. Robert Price. Everybody is debating about the manuscripts because we've all come to learn. We've all come to learn in this modern day age that there was a whole lot more going on back then that we have been made purposely blinded to. Okay, you Jehovah's Witnesses, if you've got either this colored New World Translation of the Holy Scriptures, did I say that? Yeah, I got that right. Or the black one, go to John chapter 8. I want to read something. Right here, John chapter 8. Excuse me, I guess it would be John chapter 7, verse 53. And then 1 through 12. You have, what Watchtower's done is they have taken that portion from that manuscript and they're telling you, this is what they tell you, manuscripts, BSY, omit verses 53 to chapter 8, verses 11, which read, with some variations in the various Greek texts and versions as follows. Now this account is the account of the woman caught in the act of adultery. Okay, where Jesus famously says, well, you without sin cast the first stone. And then he goes down and he continues writing, and then he looks up and he says, well, where are your accusers? Well, I don't accuse you either. If this is the inerrant Word of God, then why is Watchtower telling you that there's different manuscripts? Some manuscripts have this, some manuscripts don't. Well, which Jesus do you believe in? The one that forgives the adulterer, or the one that sits down and separates the sheep from the goats and he sends the goats off to be murdered? What Jesus do you believe in? Now, it's interesting. When this silver sword first came out, a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and even a lot of current Jehovah's Witnesses, people contacted us and said, hey, did you notice in the Revised Standard, the silver sword, they took out all those scriptures regarding the adulteress who under the Mosaic law should have been murdered because she was caught. But there's a big problem. What about the man? Didn't they catch the man? I mean, surely the man must have been doing it when she got caught. Where's the judgment against the man? Oh, it ain't there. Because it's a human, man-made book.
Well, if you noticed, it starts with chapter 8, verse 12. Do they even have a footnote telling you that it's gone?
Well, actually, they do. But they reword it just a little bit.
Because you can't actually read it because all those verses are not in here.
So this is what the footnote says. A number of ancient and authoritative manuscripts omit verses 53 to chapter 8, verses 11. What? A number of ancient authoritative manuscripts? Oh, wait a minute.
If they're authoritative, then why aren't they included?
Why aren't they there? Why aren't they there? Authoritative? Who's authoritative? Whose word makes those manuscripts authoritative? How do we know that that little credit card size piece of manuscript in the museum that has 616 on the backside is not the absolute authoritative word? All these Christians, oh, 666 is the mark of the wild beast. No, it's 616. You guys are all spinning your wheels for nothing.
Allegedly. Well, I mean, which manuscript do you believe? Which one is supposedly from God?
Well, like this manuscript here, how do you not know, Jehovah's Witnesses, or all of you other Bible scholars, that those original words, Jesus forgiving the adulteress, is not the authoritative manuscript from Jehovah?
Well, look at all of these people that hold up the King James and say this is the real Bible, and you need to get people into this real Bible. Well, when you go back to the real King James from 1611, these apocryphias are in there. So, do you count them then as part of the authoritative canon?
Well, here again, let's go to a real Bible, the real King James, John chapter 8. There is not one note, not one explanation showing you that there were various manuscripts recounting this account of the adulterous woman.
And they start with 8:1.
Yep. And Jesus went into the Mount of Olives, yada, 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 yada. They said unto him, verse 4, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act.
So they have it in their Bible.
Of course they have it in their Bible. Of course they do. Now,
It's in the regular text, part of the text.
and I decided to double check that in a more recent defined King James Version, and guess what? Not one note showing that there are different manuscripts floating around, some with, some without. So I decided to read the introduction. And I want to share this with you because I want to show everybody just how destructive these 66 canonized books have become in the hands of men. Introduction by the footnote author and editor. The King James Bible has long been recognized as one of the greatest literary works in the English language. For over 3 centuries, now that's 300 years. For over 3 centuries, it did more to influence the English-speaking people than any other book. It influenced the way they acted. You're damn right. When they arrived in South America with this book, what did they do? Kill the heathens! Burn the heathens! Oh, wait a minute. Why did they do that? Because they found out that in South America, that predated their theology, they already believed in a Jesus Christ because it was a common story floating around the world.
I believe they called him Viracocha.
Viracocha.
The Mayans and some of those ancient civilizations.
Which predated Christianity. Well, oh my goodness, we can't have another group of people on the other side of the earth believing in their own version of Jesus Christ. You have to find the real Jesus.
What's interesting about their statues of Viracocha is a lot of the Native Americans can't grow beards. And so they, you never see these, indigenous people with beards. But yet this Viracocha is shown with a beard.
Yeah. Look at what they did when they came to this continent, North America. They took this same book and tried to annihilate the Native American Indian. This book did influence how men acted in a very, very bad, unkind, unloving way. Look at what this book does today. Well, if you don't believe in my Jesus, you're going to burn in hell. Well, if you don't believe in Jesus, Michael the Archangel, you're not going to get into the new system of things. It still has a very adverse, negative effect on humanity. Why? Because it's a man-made document. 2/3 of that human number is in your hand. And you've used this book to destroy people's lives. Well, look, because of this book, we have the right to enslave people with a different skin color. It comes right from this book. Going on. So this book has influenced men in a negative way. The way they thought. Oh yeah, that's right, because the white race is the most perfect race.
Superior.
Yeah, the white race is the superior race. Exactly. Comes right from the 66 canonized books. 2/3 of that Mark of the Wild Beast. Going on. The way they wrote. The way they spoke. Even in the 20th century, English-speaking people around the world continue to be affected by the rhythm, cadence, beauty, and power of this venerable version. But how do we preserve for the 21st century the accuracy, beauty, and dependability of the classic King James Bible without sacrificing clarity of understanding in a day of rapidly diminishing literacy? One answer may be the defined King James Version. Now, I'm not going to go on and reading any more about how this author chooses, without any divine intervention, what word that he wants to use that closely correlates with the classical Greek or the classical Hebrew. I'm not going to bore you with that. Look it up yourself and read it. You will see. Even in these authors' own words, he wasn't guided by any divine spirit. He chose himself. Which definition of the word? I did a video a long time ago. The Watchtower did the same thing with the scripture in James, which is be obedient to those taking the lead. That particular Greek word has 5 different meanings. And be obedient, obedient was the least of the words you want to use. They all do it. Why? Because it's 66 canonized books by the Roman emperor and the religious nut jobs of that day. Because nobody could agree.
Did you just call the Nicene Council members nut jobs?
They're just as much of a nut jobs as the governing body of the Watchtower and Babel Crap Society are. Because we have been taught to surrender our own intellect and have surrendered it to people that we think are more educated, people that have more common sense than we do. When, look, I said it in a video real recently, ignorance this day and age is a choice. Being able to research a topic is literally at your fingertip now. And yes, there's many contradicting, many conflicting topics. That's where you have to do a lot of research. And how does it resonate with you? When you're looking for the mark of the wild beast, now that you know there are other manuscripts out there that use 616, maybe we can all stop wasting our time and realize that this is just a bunch of men trying to destroy the minds of other men.
Or trying to push their own agenda.
Or exactly, push their own agenda. I've once again showed scriptures in the book of Revelation where that Jesus, supposedly the same Jesus that converted the Apostle Paul on the road to Damascus, that Jesus now puts Paul in the same category as Balaam and wicked Queen Jezebel by the teaching it's okay to eat food sacrificed to idols. This is nothing more than an age-old religious battle for a new and emerging religion that officially, because of the combining of the 66 books, is a Roman document. This book became a state religion. This is the official document of the Roman Christian religion. That's all it is.
Well, just like the silver one is Watchtower's
Their official
Constitution.
Exactly.
And if you don't believe me, go listen to part 1 of Jeffrey Jackson's testimony before the Asherim Royal Commission. He called it their Constitution, and they're guardians of their Constitution.
Exactly. Exactly right. Religion is a snare and a racket. Rutherford was absolutely right. But yet at the same time, while they're going around destroying other religions as being part of Babylon the Great, you forget to look in your own house. You forget to look and see that you're very much part of it too.
Yeah. So I'm going to put the link down below to Freddie Franz's full talk on the writer's inkhorn. It's very cultish. And I mean, the things he admits and says, I would love to send this to every government in this on this planet.
That's right.
Because it shows what extremists they are. And it's just how modern day Jehovah's Witnesses could listen to something like this and try to defend it is beyond me.
Yeah.
Is beyond me. And also, thank you, sweetie. We got a phone call this morning, and he loved Mike saying that ignorance is a choice, and he asked us to design a t-shirt. And so even though we don't promote any merchandising or ourselves as far as, you know, donations or anything like that, I am going to put the link down below to that t-shirt because this was by special request and I have no way to email this person. So the link will be below to get a t-shirt that says ignorance today is a choice. So
Vinny, I know this probably wasn't what you was expecting, but I just found it interesting to hear a conservative Christian scholar admit that there was another manuscript floating out there with a different number, not 666, but 616, and he had the nerve to say in that same talk, well, this isn't anything to make us lose our faith over. And I thought, what a huge waste of time all these people are wasting looking for 666 when we don't have clue one whether the other manuscript with 616 is not the inerrant word of God.
And also, back in 1967, they used to believe Pastor Russell was the man with the writer's inkhorn. Well, they had to change that when he died, and then it became the 144,000. So they applied that to themselves, and it goes right along with this mark. Because if you do not have this mark from the 144,000, which, a lot of witnesses think Jesus is their mediator, and he's not. Even in the Jeremiah book, as recent as that, it was saying he was only the mediator for the 144,000. So Jehovah's Witness, you lay members, you rank and file, he is not your mediator. Even though your Bible says Jesus is your mediator, he is not.
It's not what Watchtower teaches.
So, the 144,000 now are doing this job of, the writer's inkhorn. So they're applying it to themselves, which goes along. If you do not get this mark from the 144,000, the faithful and discreet slave, then you get your mark from the wild beast of this world.
And by extension, you get your head bashed in at Armageddon.
Yeah.
That's...
Yeah. So that's it in a nutshell, Vinny.
In a very big nutshell.
Oh, yeah. Well, it goes along with nut jobs, so.
Yeah.
So thank you for watching. And thank you so much, everybody, for your research and sending me stuff. I've got a bunch of articles here that people have sent me, something they have found. And I'm hoping to have a chance to do some videos about some of this stuff because it's some interesting stuff.
Yes.
And go check out the jw.org. Type in that N word. And I know that they're only quoting what others are saying, but you could redact that and change it up a little bit to where it wouldn't be so offensive.
Right.
So, we love you all and hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Bye.
Bye.